One day she came home pregnant with another man's kid.
Wait a minute.
I got hit in the back of the head with a frying pan. I was standing there doing the dishes. You know, in that situation, I did react defensively. I was trying to kind of find my voice again, and that created a massive point of tension in the marriage because I wasn't supposed to do music. You know, I was a construction worker. Anytime that I would spend doing music was viewed as something bad. Like, you know, you're taking time away from your children to do this. You're taking time away from me to do this. When realistically, it just got to a point with my emotions to where I had something inside of me that had to come out. There was a text message that was sent that specifically said, I am going to use the kids to hurt you.
Really?
Yes.
And she did that?
She did exactly that. She did it once.
Were there times any of your kids will walk up to you and be like, Dad, why are you fighting with Mom?
I'm sure there are.
Were there times you abused her too?
There are times that I reacted unfavorably. I had a terrible childhood. I wasn't the only one that got hurt as a child. And two hurt people hurting each other. You know? Two people who hadn't quite yet broken the cycle of abuse for themselves, trying to break the cycle of abuse for each other.
Good morning, good afternoon, beautiful people, wherever you're watching us from around the world. Yeah. Welcome once again on another episode on 101 on K84 Podcast with your host and friend, Kenna the Greatest. Yeah. We got truly a great guest in the building tonight, and I'm excited, you know what I mean? Yeah, but before that, you know what I mean, make sure to become part of the K84 family and community by go liking, following, sharing, and subscribing on social media. Just search K84 Podcast and stay connected. Stick around, the show kicks off right after this.
It's KKATL, turn up, it's official. All right. Before we proceed to give you what you need, if you have a story to share with us, or want a partner, do business, advertise, or sponsor, or wherever, just send us a text message on the number you see on your screen, and we will get in touch with you. Yeah. K84 Podcast is committed in being a home for all and everybody, a safe and open space where everyone could come on and share and tell his story or her story and experiences. So you know what? Ladies and gentlemen, who is my guest on the show today?
When the music hits you, you feel no pain. Nobody does it better than Tyler, Cline Sr. Oklahoma's own rising star, from a rough start in a broken home through tough times, bad marriage, divorce, and everything in between. Tyler never stopped grinding, never stopped believing, never stopped making the music he was born to create. Locking 2 major music deals that put him on the national radar. So turn up, turn it out loud, because you're about to witness the next big thing in pop rock. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Tyler, Cline Sr. on 101 on the K84 Podcast.
How you doing, Tyler?
I'm doing great, man.
Yeah.
You know,
how's life?
life is exactly what it is. You know, it's a series of struggles. It's a series of victories and losses. You know, right now I think I'm kind of finding the balance between the two of them.
That's great.
You know,
that's great. So, where is Tyler from?
I'm from Tulsa, Oklahoma originally. I've lived all over. One place I truly claim is home is Atlanta or Northeast Georgia.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Atlanta. You got Atlanta in the building.
Yes, sir.
All right. So, you know what I mean? Did you grow up a little bit in Atlanta?
I didn't. Realistically, I found myself in Atlanta. You know,
Which year was this?
2003 it would have been.
23. So how long did you stay there or live there? Or?
I lived there up until April of 24.
Oh, okay.
2024.
So
and
what were you doing there?
realistically, just kind of healing. You know, I went through a lot of trauma, and it reached a point to where I needed some time to kind of rediscover myself, figure out who I was, you know, past everything that I'd been through. So I go out there and link up with some of the best friends I've ever met, and, you know, figured out exactly who I was and where I was going, and came right back.
Okay. How was life in Tulsa?
You know, life in Tulsa, aside from a particular set of struggles, to be honest with you, I love life in Tulsa. There's a lot of really great local music here. There's an incredible local art scene that doesn't get enough attention. There's a truly wonderful populace of people that live here in Tulsa, and it's kind of like a cultural melting pot for all different types. And so, you know, as a musician and, you know, everything else I've been going through, I'm proud to represent Tulsa.
Okay, that's good. So have you been in, Tennessee, Nashville?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, so how would you compare, Nashville to Tulsa with the music scene?
Realistically, those are two different places entirely. Nashville's much more country or like alt country focused, and Tulsa has a very heavy rock focus. You know, there's country out here and stuff like that, but realistically, I would compare Tulsa more to Austin, Texas, if I were to make a comparison.
Okay, so what's your genre of music?
Indie rock, maybe a little bit of folk rock in that.
Okay, so can you tell me the difference between like country and indie rock?
Yeah, I mean, country is its whole genre. You know, you have a twang in the way you sing. You sing with maybe a southern accent, and you know, there are certain topics and stuff that are pretty generalized and common with country music. But when it comes to indie rock, at least in our definition of it, it's just the closest way to describe an amalgamation of just about everything. You know, nobody in the band itself wants to be labeled to one specific sound or one specific tune or genre. And so indie is just kind of the best we could get to that. And that's like an independent genre.
Okay, so how long have you been singing?
I've been singing since, realistically, I was about 8 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I started off and I thought, you know, this dude, I've got a terrible voice. I didn't ever think that I was going to be the lead singer of a band or anything like that. But, you know, I've always sang, and now I'm to the point to where I sing everywhere I go in my car.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So are you signed to any label yet?
Yes, we're signed to 2 record labels currently.
That's great.
Yeah.
So is it here in Tulsa or where is it at?
No, our record labels are national. We're signed to Fairvox Records out of Syracuse, New York. I'm sorry.
Oh,
and then
good.
we're also signed to the Sharon Collective out of Dallas, Texas.
That's great.
One handles digital and handles our distribution with Sony Records.
That's awesome.
And that's our distribution. And then the other handles our physical merch like CDs and potentially vinyl.
Okay. So currently, what project are you working on?
We just finished our Sucker EP, which was written for my wife Haley.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, thank you. And our next project is our full-length record, Howl, which is due out through Fairvox. We're still in negotiations to figure out how exactly we're going to do merch and physical media on that. But Howl is an album that's not only about my wife, Haley, but also about my children and parental alienation. And I'm really proud of this. This album is 2 years in the making, and it's quite possibly one of the deepest things I've ever written.
Okay. So tell me this, right? What are some of the tours or places you've been so far?
I've been as far north as Canada, as far south as Mexico. Some of my favorites, the Chicago, Illinois crowd, really cool. Atlanta has an amazing crowd for people too. But I've kind of been a little bit everywhere.
All right, great. Yeah, I mean, so which bands do you look up to, or which bands you would love to collaborate with?
Realistically, if I had a choice, it'd be my favorite, Starflyer 59.
Oh.
Yeah, that's Jason Martin, and that's music that I cut my teeth on as a musician and really came up with. But there are other great bands like Band of Horses or MGMT, Midlake. The list goes on. And with the Meadowlarks, our whole goal is collaboration, and so realistically, I'm open to as many of those collaborations as I can get moving forward.
Okay. So check this out. Music then and music now. See the new crop of artists or bands or singers coming up. There's some sort of like, it's a new form of revolution or thing going on. What's your take on that?
In some ways it's good, in some ways it's bad.
Okay, so let's check the good and the bad. Start with the good.
Let's start with the good. What's with the good is that we're in a day and age with music to where, bedroom producers, home producers are more capable of doing things than they ever have been. You can buy a MIDI keyboard, you can buy Logic Pro setup or Ableton setup, and you can really start to create your own music that's, can be even chart-topping quality. And so you're starting to see a lot more creative and artistic expression from artists, and I think that's fantastic. People are able to step outside of the studio and the confined box that most labels might put them in and create something truly fresh and unique.
That's good. So what are some of the challenges have you faced in your music career so far?
Self-management. I'm currently the manager of the band, and I do all the booking and stuff like that. I think that's the biggest challenge that I've faced so far. Not that it's hard to get bookings, not that it's hard to, negotiate deals, but, my job primarily too is to produce all of our music as it sits. We're spread out over 7 different states. Okay. Respectively, so everybody has their own recording capability. We send it in, and then I compile everything together here in Tulsa. And I think once we all start getting into a studio, it'll probably be a lot easier of a process.
Okay, so how many members are in your band?
Officially 6, but we have a 7th member that joins as needed.
Oh, okay. So what's your role in the band?
I'm the lead singer, songwriter, brainchild, if you will. That's my thing, and I've kind of compiled this collective of artists that probably otherwise would have never made music together. So I'm kind of the orchestrator, if you will.
Yeah, so how did you orchestrate it, or how did you cut off your band members? How did you guys meet?
Some of us, like Matthew Schwartz, he's one of my best friends. He's also the backing vocalist of the band. He's done some piano parts.
Where did you meet him?
I met him in Atlanta, Georgia, but believe it or not, 3 of us in the band met on the Starflyer 59 Face group page.
Oh.
And we're all fans of the same band, and we all were kind of some of the prolific music creators inside of the group. And I became a really big fan of Matthew's band, Pacifico. He inspired me to really get back out there, and that, as a dad of 4, I wasn't too old to start creating music again. That was appealing. And, from there, it just kind of grew. And then Jared joined the band, and Darren joined the band. Jonathan is actually the little brother of one of my heroes, Richard Swift. He joined the band just kind of here recently as he's able to. So this whole thing is great. I get to work with friends, and I also get to work with heroes. The drummer of the album Howl that's coming out, his name's Frank Lenz. He's a previous drummer and producer of the band Starflyer 59. So we're really kind of trying to do something that hasn't come out of Tulsa or the Northeast Oklahoma area.
That's great. So growing up, do you always want to do music, or you have something else in mind?
I always wanted to do music, but there's that part of you that's like, there are, 10,000 people that are just as talented, if not more talented than me, that are competing for these same spots with record labels, that are competing for these same gigs, these same shows. And so there was a part of me that was like, this isn't feasible. This isn't something that can happen. But, I somehow found myself here again at 34. I was signed to a record label with a previous band when I was 17 years old as well. And, stopped, had some kids for a while, and somehow managed to find my way back. So I figure if you can do it twice, then anybody can do it.
Okay, so tell me certain challenges you've had, in your music journey.
I think really one of the bigger challenges that comes to mind right off the bat is balance. Because I have my identity as a musician, I have my identity in my work life, and then I have my identity as a husband or, a father to my children. So it's all about making sure that I can tend to each of those fires equitably So, the music career keeps on moving forward. My personal career keeps on moving forward. I can keep providing and doing what I'm supposed to do as a father. So, this last record, Sucker EP, which is out on every streaming platform right now, we crammed it into about a 2.5 month period. We had kind of a timeline with the label, and I found, being the producer and everything like that and the sole funding source for the band, it took a lot of time from my personal life, from work ventures, from even personal relationships and stuff like that. So just being in such an involved project, it's more or less about finding balance between your personal life. Another challenge is, Tulsa, Oklahoma is known for its music, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of great music that comes out of here. All American Rejects came out of Stillwater. You've got some great stuff going on here, but at the same time, it's kind of a saturated market. So you've really got to do something that sets yourself apart from the rest of what everybody else is doing to break out of that local market and into a national market. And I think once we as a band developed a game plan as to how that would be possible and how we will create something that is unique, that kind of fell away.
Okay. All right. That's cool to hear. But how is the music scene in Tulsa like? Is it that much vibrant compared to places like Texas, New York, Nashville, Atlanta, Florida? How is the music scene in Tulsa, Oklahoma like?
Realistically, I feel like Tulsa could be another music hub if more people were aware of it and the actual diversity. You've got things here from electronic music or DJs, you've got metal, you've got indie, you've got folk, you've got country. So, it's just as much of a melting pot as anywhere else, and we have just as unique of an indie scene as, places like Philadelphia or Portland. It's just not a lot of people are aware of the music here. We've even got great acts like Cliff Diver. That's, a buddy of mine, Joey Duffy. He's here from Tulsa. And, there are bands that break out, but there's so much more good music and incredible musicians that are probably even better than me that exist here.
All right. So in the next 10 years, right, where do you see yourself and your band?
Realistically, in 10 years, I like to play shows. I do. I like to go out. I like to interact with crowds. But in 10 years, I'm hoping to be a studio musician. I'm hoping to have, at least 10 records down under our belt. Be able to tour at our leisure, be settled in my career outside of music, and just really be able to build a nest egg to enjoy that time with my family. Because, I'm 34 years old. I don't want to keep doing, what even Angus Young from AC/DC does. I'd like to just be able to record music and release it by that point.
So, when it comes to music, right, it comes from the soul. How is your writing process like?
That's probably one of the best questions I've been asked about our music to date. It's really an ethereal experience writing music for me. I also write literature. I'm working on a book right now. But I implement some techniques that I learned in writing, and I gear every one of our songs to be a message. It's not just something that's pleasant to listen to or something that is, pleasing to the ear. It's, if I can speak to that one person in a crowd of 5,000 people, then I've done my job as a musician. So my job is to make you feel something. And so really when I write, I try and reach into the deepest part of myself and make myself incredibly vulnerable to the whole market listening to the song. Because realistically, that's what music is about. It's about feeling something. It's about that song you hear at 3 a.m. when you can't sleep because you're upset about something and it just hits every spot. I want any of our songs to be like that for people. So I really try and use it as a way to bear my soul out there and to just really kind of let loose.
Tell me this. Do you write your songs based on your life experiences or, based on maybe a story or just a feeling?
A thought or a feeling or even a moment I don't want to forget. It's kind of like taking a snapshot. I was talking to my wife Haley earlier, and I compared this music project that I did several years ago in a dark part of my life to like a journal entry. So as a musician, all of these songs, each of these releases, they're all done through different phases of your life, different experiences, different ages. And so by the time you look back at all these albums you've recorded throughout your life, it's a snapshot of exactly where you were. And it kind of creates just a really cool legacy, you know, because books can be water damaged. They can burn. They can, you know, disintegrate. But realistically, in the age of internet, in the age of MP3s, MP4s, WAV files, you create an album, you release it on a permanent basis. That's something that you can keep. That's something that is documenting, like, hey, I was here. And so it's kind of my way of leaving a legacy. And even with our upcoming album, Howl, I mentioned that that's a lot about my kids. That's something that they're going to be able to listen to when they're 40 years old.
That's good. So is music paying if you're not out there big as like a major, you know what I mean, band or artist?
Yes and no. It kind of depends on what you would consider paying. There's different levels. Yeah, if you're getting out there, you're selling tickets, you're selling records, you're selling merchandise at your booth, it's paying. You can make a definite living off of doing this. You can make it off of your streaming. But, you know, you've got to couple it with, like I said, in my case, if there's somebody that wanted to get into a show because they felt like there was something they needed to hear and they didn't have money, I'd make sure they were there, because at the end of the day, for me and just about everybody else in the band, we're just happy to be here doing this. You know, we're happy to have had, all of us have had label affiliation at one point in our life or another. And so now we're all nearing middle age, and we're happy to be here contributing something in 2025 that's relevant. And so, yeah, it pays. It makes money. But I think just knowing that there are people out there that care about the music we're creating is payment enough.
Okay, so tell me this, right?
Uh-huh.
Has there been an instances where like a member of the band couldn't make it whilst you guys got a gig to play?
Oh, yeah.
And then how do you guys, you know what I mean, find a solution or, you know what I mean, a quick fix?
You know, we had that happen here recently. There was a benefit show that we were doing that was to benefit Laureate Brain Institute and National Alliance for Mental Illness. And originally we had tried to schedule it to where the band could play out, but with us being, you know, spread across the United States, scheduling conflicts arose. And so I ended up getting some tracks together, and I played up there and had tracks in the background for different band members so I could make sure that everybody's part was present.
Okay. That's awesome. So do you sometimes go through like, you know what I mean, personal differences, like, hey, you know what I mean, I wanted to go, though you're the leader of the band, right? But sometimes other members will feel like, hey, we gotta do it this way. In that kind of, you know what I mean, differences, how do you guys, you know what I mean, treat it?
You know, that's something I've been really fortunate about. Everybody seems to kind of agree for the most part, but every major decision we make with the band, we do over Microsoft Teams. We'll do a Teams meeting, get everybody on the phone, discuss it, and at the end of the day, you know, somebody's got to be the one to be like, hey, this is where we're going to go. But I try my hardest, you know, as the impromptu management of the band, to keep everything as across the board equal as possible, because everybody's opinion matters. But there are certain things that are just, it's business. You know, you've got to make a decision now because it affects the release then. And for those cases, it's kind of case by case. But most of the time, we're able to just kind of talk amongst each other and unanimously come up with an agreement.
As a band leader, how do you inspire, you know what I mean, your crew?
Realistically, I've learned that the harder I work, the more inspired they get. The more ready I am to go at something, I'm like, I've got, you know, this ready. I've got this whole demo laid out. I've got promoters ready to promote the track. I'm ready to shoot a video. I come at it like that, and it's like, okay, it's time to work. But realistically, the way that I motivate everybody else is to get motivated myself.
Good. Right. So when you reach out to me, you know what I mean, wanting to share your story, you had, you know what I mean, some back ends conversation, and then I'm like, hey, bro, this is a safe space.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For whoever that got the story to share, just open. So what happened in your previous, you know what I mean, marriage or relationship? What happened?
You know, it was one of those things to where I was raised in a broken household. And so my goal growing up was to create that healthy family to where everybody's happy and you're loyal and you stick with them, and you just do your best to kind of create a structure there that is unshakable. You know, you're loyal to your spouse to a fault. You know, you're loyal to your kids. And so past getting married, I left the Army, came home, and just really buckled down and focused on work.
So, what year did you join the Army?
I joined the Army in 2011.
Okay.
I did. And I ended up fracturing a hip while I was in the service, and ended up choosing to come home because it was either come home or spend an obnoxious amount of time in medical barracks.
So, was you married when you joined the Army, or you came back and then married later?
I was common law married.
Okay. So, how long was you with your ex?
We had been together at that time, realistically, about 6 months when I joined.
Okay. So, what year was that?
2011.
2011. How old was she then?
How old was I?
Yep.
I was 19 years old.
Okay. Okay. So, how did you met your ex?
We actually met at a party. I showed up and I was there to kind of hang out and, you know, meet everybody. We had mutual friends, and I remember I had come there and there was somebody else that was trying to hit on me, and I was not having it just because I wasn't interested in this person. And I remember with my ex-wife, it just kind of, we kept gravitating towards each other, and that, you know, sparked a conversation that ended up lasting several days.
Okay. So, growing up, you just said, you know, I mean, you grew up in a broken home. How was it like? Can you paint a picture of how your home was like?
You know, my home when I was growing up was pretty chaotic. I know my mom did her best to keep it under wraps and to keep it manageable, but it was really chaotic. And then the way I envision marriage life and, you know, life with another parent or having kids with somebody is a team. You know, teamwork, working together towards one common goal, which is stability for the kids, which is stability for each other, which is, you know, a calm, loving, respectful relationship.
Right. So, where was your father or your dad growing up?
He was actually a pretty terrible person, you know, and I really don't mind saying it. He was incredibly abusive. And looking back as an adult, I'd say that of all the children in the family, I probably got it the worst because, you know,
Was he beating you, abusing you?
Yeah, I mean, just about every type of abuse that you can think of that could occur to a child occurred under that roof. Physical, sexual, emotional, psychological. As far as, you know, the physical end of things, the beating, the fists and stuff, I probably took the worst of that.
So, was your dad and mom married?
They were.
So, did they divorce?
They did. As soon as the nature of how far the abuse had gone came out, my mom filed for divorce
So,
immediately.
who was abusing the other? Was that your mom to your dad or your dad to your mom, or how was it?
It was, you know, realistically, she never claimed this because she just focused on the abuse from my dad to us as the kids. But if I look back, you know, on top of that, my dad was incredibly abusive to my mom as well.
So, where's your dad now?
He spent, I think, 5 years in prison, and now he's in Pineville, West Virginia.
Okay. Is he living a better life, or is he changed to be a better person, or what is his life now?
Not at all.
So the same old self.
You know, I don't know what he's doing. I don't care. I do know that a few years back, I heard through a family member that he had regrets, and I'm like, you know what? Okay, you know, I'm in my 30s. I'll hear him out. And the one request I had is like, we're not gonna put it on the internet. I'm not gonna record it. Nobody else has to be there, but you got to look me in the eye and tell me you're sorry. You know,
And
that
did
was
he do that?
no, he wouldn't do it. So
Why?
he doesn't have the balls, to be honest with you. You know, he just doesn't have the courage to face what he did. And at that point, that was my closure, though, because, you know, I realized that anybody that could put, you know, a family or their child through what he put us through, and then not even be able to look at him years later and just say I'm sorry, that's nobody that's worth your time.
So how many siblings do you have?
I have 3 siblings. I have a brother and 2 sisters.
Okay. So what are they doing now?
My brother Tony, he's doing pretty well. He's just kind of doing his thing right now. He's dealing with a battle with Crohn's disease, so he's been recovering from that. My sister runs her own cleaning business. She's doing pretty well, and my little sister Kinsey just got married. She had a baby. My niece Maggie, she's amazing. So, we're all moving along.
Okay. So back to your, life with your ex-wife. How did it all got worse?
One of the biggest pieces of advice that I give to anybody that comes to me and asks me any marriage advice is not to get complacent with what you have. Not to get so comfortable that you forget, what a blessing it is to have that partner. And, just overall not to put your hands on somebody, not to demean somebody's goals. And things weren't always terrible. I'm not going to sit here and say that, this marriage was always crap, because it had its moments, but, there were also moments of closeness. There were moments of great memories.
So did you feel complacent at this point in time?
Not at that point in time, not in the beginning. The complacency came later on, and it's kind of that point when you realize, I'm not really wanted here. And so you just kind of go into autopilot and just kind of go through life because you've made this commitment to this person. You've made a promise. At this point, we had kids together, and it's like, I owe it to them. I owe it to my kids to do whatever I can to make this work.
Right. You being an artist, right, or a band leader, you travel around, see pretty, beautiful ladies, and then all of that. At a point in time, did you give in or cheated on your wife?
I didn't. Realistically, loyalty is something I've never had an issue with. And that's actually always been really important to me. There were times I was accused of cheating, but I was working sometimes up to a 60-hour work week and then coming home, cooking dinner, cleaning. There just would have been...
You were working, come home, cook, and clean?
Yes.
What was your wife doing?
I could sit here and give a million reasons, but if I look back, she was dealing with depression. She was dealing with personal issues and...
Personal issues like what?
See, my ex-wife, she went through multiple assessments and was supposed to be medicated. She's bipolar and has a personality disorder. And it was never something that she felt comfortable treating or dealing with. And so it would just kind of spiral out of control, and things would escalate to the point of her just not wanting to do anything. Or there were times where I had to mitigate and do suicide patrol and make sure that she didn't throw herself out of a car.
Really?
Yeah.
Were there moments or instances that, some of that happened?
Yeah, and some of the ones that haunt me to this day involve her trying to throw herself out of the car with our child in her stomach.
When was that?
That would have been 2018.
She was pregnant, how months old?
She was pregnant. She was probably about 7 months pregnant at the time. And there were probably 5 or 6 times I can think of her trying to eject herself from a vehicle, or saying that, I'm going to have this child and then jump off the roof of the hospital. And I recognized, we had several kids, so I knew there was a component of postpartum there. But as a partner, having to constantly mitigate self-harm or harm that could completely decimate a child's life, that was when things got really hard for me to handle.
Did you and your ex-wife ever use drugs?
We smoked weed. We definitely did. There were a few times that we partied with other people, but I was a professional. For a good portion of our marriage, I was running a business. Another portion of a marriage, I was working in an upper management style position. So there was never really time for me to use drugs. However, after the marriage, I start talking to people, and me being me and just kind of oblivious when it comes to somebody I love, I start hearing stories about how there's been meth use and other illicit drug use behind my back. There ended up being some, pharmaceutical use while pregnant with my son. And, this is stuff that I should have seen coming. You know, it was my responsibility to spot it, and I failed. But, you know, when you're with somebody and you're loyal to somebody, you want to see the best in them. You want to back them.
Right. So was she working when you guys, were married or living together?
No, the entire time we were together, from, you know, our teens all the way up to divorce, she never worked. I supported our entire family by myself.
Oh, so did you guys had some counseling services, before you guys?
I tried. When it came to the divorce, it wasn't what was in my heart.
What was in your heart?
What was in my heart is I committed to this person. I made children with this person. I've got to at least do my due diligence and make certain that it can't work before I file the divorce papers. I left her in 2020 and didn't end up filing the physical divorce till 22.
Why?
I wanted to believe that there was some kind of hope of reconciliation. And there was also the fact that I knew that if I filed divorce, I would be in serious trouble.
What trouble?
Well, exactly what happened. I had tried to file divorce once before on this person before we moved back to Oklahoma.
So what were you guys, living?
We lived in Colorado. I moved out there to not only experience legalization, but I went out there and was building greenhouses for marijuana grows on the edge of legalization. And so we went out there. We had a child out there. So.
Oh, okay. So Colorado to Oklahoma.
Correct.
Yeah. Do you guys, had some sort of one-on-one conversation, deep conversations to be like, hey, we got to put life right. When you guys, because I was like, marriage is something really difficult to do or go in. And then when you guys get married, there'll be times, hey, you're not feeling him or her, and then she also not feeling you or whatever. So in all that moment, did you guys sometimes have deep conversation that, listen, it's not working, but how do we fix this?
I feel like there were a few of those conversations. I always try, with not only my partners, but my friends, to have those deep conversations and really encourage feeling. But we had those conversations, but it always came down to, it can't happen. You can't do this. I can't do this to the kids. You can't. And then it started getting to the point to where these deep conversations that were meant to help and try and fix things turned out into fights that would be just devastating for one or both parties, or, ones that would make it to where I was just so depressed and felt like such of a failure as a spouse or as a dad because I couldn't keep everybody together, that I didn't feel like I could go to work. And that was the point when I realized it was time for a change, when I was feeling worse than I was good. I was spending more time hating myself than I was saying, man, you've done a good job.
So, looking back with the experience you had with your ex-wife, what would have been something different you would have made if you had to redo it again?
If I had to redo it again, I would have probably implemented marriage counseling way early on. Probably about a year in. Just because in any kind of healthy marriage, which I'm finding this out now, later in life, when I'm with somebody, new that truly appreciates me, marriage is all about that balance. It's about two people that may have completely different, opposing perspectives, being able to find a balance in between that is harmonious. And if we would have been able to just figure out communication in a way that didn't end up harmful, or didn't end up making one person feel terrible, or both people feel terrible for that matter, then things probably could have gone very differently. But, I can honestly say I did my best to foster that. But, I think sometimes maybe the stay together for the kids mentality isn't necessarily the healthiest.
Did you experience abuse in your marriage?
I did.
Tell me more.
This is probably the hardest part to talk about because a lot of it was emotional, like psychological. And any time that physical abuse was present, it was usually in the form of having things thrown at me or being hit with physical objects because that would inflict the most pain. But realistically, if I'm looking back, the most harmful part, you could hit me in the face 5 times a day, and I would be okay as long as you weren't telling me I'm worthless. As long as you weren't telling me that everything that I've worked to do doesn't matter. That it doesn't equate to anything, that, the 60-hour work weeks are worthless. And, in any healthy relationship, it's so important to build up your partner's dreams, not to take from them.
So, are you trying to tell me your ex was trying to take away your dream?
Yes.
How?
That's kind of like with music. I'm sitting here, I play you these songs, we're signed to a record label. But the whole time I was married to this person, I was not allowed to play music.
Why? You, the man in the marriage, so you take decisions. As the head of the family. So why would you allow somebody to kind of like, hey, I'm not going to allow you to do what you love to do as a man?
Because I was under the impression that, my job was to keep the peace in the marriage. And unfortunately, having come from an abusive background with my parental life, I come into this relationship, and that to me looked like you got to give up what matters to you to keep peace in the home so the kids and everybody can have a good upbringing. I realize now that's not true. As the man in the household, I do have a say, but realistically, in a healthy marriage, both partners have autonomy. Both partners should be able to say, this matters to me. This is what I want to do with my life. This is something that makes me happy. And then the other partner's there to support them and do the same themselves. And it was just never like that. With music, I distinctly recall many conversations. It's like, if you go out, you get back out on stage, I'm not going to be able to keep an eye on you long enough, and other women are going to want to sleep with you.
Oh, so you were kind of like being micro manipulated.
Correct. It was, I think the best word to describe it looking back would be coercive control. It's coercing you to do what they want at the threat of trouble at home.
Yeah. You did say something about abuse. Were you both like physically and then emotionally abused? And then you have, instances you could share,
Realistically, yeah. Both parties in this situation, and that's why even now, there's been a lot of pain between partners. There's been a lot of stuff that's gone wrong, but I can look back and say that I wasn't the only one that had a terrible childhood. I wasn't the only one that got hurt as a child. And I think a lot of what we saw in our marriage was two hurt people hurting each other. Two people who hadn't quite yet broken the cycle of abuse for themselves, trying to break the cycle of abuse for each other. And that, that can work if both parties are on board and cognizant of it, but, you can't force a square peg into a round hole. The basic phrase to go back to is hurt people hurt people.
I see. So were there times you abused her too?
There are times that I reacted unfavorably. I never abused her. I never, was unkind to her, unusually cruel. There were times of emotional shutdown. Absolutely. Times when you're just like, I can't handle it anymore. There was a time I got hit in the back of the head with a frying pan.
Huh.
I was standing there doing the dishes. I had done dinner, and from my recollection, I don't even think there was really an argument that night. But I had cooked dinner, and I was doing the dishes, and the kids had been fed, and we're watching TV. And this person comes up behind me, and I just take a cast iron skillet to the back of the head, and it didn't knock me out. I saw stars, and in that situation, I did react defensively, because I got to be honest with you, I couldn't even see with my eyes who it even was behind me. Like, you take a blow to the head and you see stars you can't really see, and I regret that.
So why would you go to work, go bust your ass, come back home, cook, clean, What's she doing?
You know, at the end of the day, she was my wife.
No, but she's not working. So at least the best she could do was, hey, if you're going out there to go work, pay bills, do all of that, then at least the best she could, okay, she's at home with the kids, at least cook or clean. You know, the dynamics. You kind of like help a bit, but you going out there, work 60, 80 or whatever hours, come back home and do all the home stuff. How was that?
You know, realistically, I don't think I minded it. And I think that I kind of set that up myself. I really take a lot of pride in being able to come home and provide for my kids. And I like cooking meals, and I like seeing everybody eat all the food that I made or tell me how good the things are. And so it just kind of started like that. And there were times that she would contribute. She would cook, but cleaning was always an issue. I was always cleaning when I wasn't working. And I think that's where that complacency word comes back in. You know, you get used to this. You get used to somebody basically waiting on you hand and foot or not having any kind of boundaries. And then when they finally set those boundaries, it's kamikaze World War III.
Oh. That's deep.
Yeah.
So, tell me this. When you guys have argument, you have it in front of the kids?
Sometimes, unfortunately. I do recall times that I would do my best to be like, hey, you need to stop. You know, you can't do this right now. We can discuss this later. And later on in the marriage, it became more or less, I don't want to discuss this at all with you. Because, you know, you realize there are these topics that are just loaded. Just completely loaded, that there's no way to win. There's no way out. There's no good way to address the pain or whatever is causing the disagreement. And at that point, you're exhausted, just mentally, physically, emotionally drained. And towards the end, you know, probably one of my failings is I just didn't have it in me anymore. I didn't have the arguing in me anymore. I didn't have the chaos in me anymore. I didn't want to do it in front of the kids. I didn't.
So I would say this: is it not the same cycle both of you experience that, you know, I mean, it's repeating itself from your previous, you know, I mean, homes?
No.
You know, I mean, you experience a similar thing growing up, and then, you know, I mean, she's also coming from a broken, you know, I mean, as you said, she's kind of like, you know, I mean, broken. So is it not the same cycle, sort of arguing in front of the kids?
You are absolutely right. It is the same cycle. You know, like I was saying earlier, hurt people hurt people. You get two people together that didn't address their traumas, or two people that came up in incredibly dysfunctional households, and you put them together and never let them address the traumas. I mean, all you're doing is perpetuating a cycle. And, you know, in this phase of my life, looking back on that, being happy now, being in a happy relationship now, and understanding communication better, you know, I put a big amount of pride into cycle breaking. And, you know, I try and encourage every parent that I work with in advocacy to break those cycles. You know, whether they were fully at fault or not, you know, you were a victim of abuse. That is what you knew. Children who grow up in homes with abuse, they don't get boundaries. You know, they don't get the opportunity to grow up learning how to set proper boundaries that are healthy, because it's, if you set this boundary with me, I'm going to kick your ass, or I'm going to beat you, or, you know, stuff like that. And so your boundaries get built off of fear and dysfunction and dysregulation, and then you never heal from that. You never get therapy that's specific to that. Then you move on as an adult. Those things still exist inside. And, you know, it's hard. It sucks. And no victim of abuse or childhood abuse ever asked for the task of having to go through and fix hurts they didn't create, but it's realistically what has to happen for somebody to move on and have a healthy and functional life.
So at a point in the marriage, did both of you seek, you know, I mean, therapy?
No, I did.
How about her?
No.
Why?
She didn't want it. She didn't like to think that there was anything wrong with how she handled things, or her, or that she needed any mental help whatsoever. And I'm telling you, pushing that was something you didn't want to do. It was something that could end up in a week-long argument, or things being thrown or getting broken, or just dysfunction in the home. So it gets to a point to where you don't want to push that anymore, so you can at least mitigate collateral damage. But I sought therapy throughout the entire marriage because I was sad.
So were there times any of your kids would walk up to you and be like, "Dad, why are you fighting with Mom?"
I'm sure there are. I can't recall any specific times. I know that there are more of those times that occurred after the separation, because the kids were a little bit older. They had a better grasp of what was going on. They could kind of understand, but I think, our kids are incredibly smart. They're incredibly perceptive and incredibly intelligent, just like their mom and their dad. And I think they could kind of tell that just it wasn't working, And I know there were times, especially my son Nathan, he did not want, the separation. He didn't understand it at first. And it became a task of just helping him understand that it has nothing to do with them as kids, and that it's more or less just about what's best for them.
So how did the divorce process went like?
How did it start?
Yeah.
You want to start there?
Yeah, I want to know everything. Share with us.
Okay. So, So what really instigated the divorce process is I had started in about 2019 back into music. I started interacting with previous members of bands like Weezer and Midlake, and really cool opportunities, and I was trying to kind of find my voice again, and that created a massive point of tension in the marriage because I wasn't supposed to do music. I was a construction worker, and any time that I would spend doing music was viewed as something bad. Like, you're taking time away from your children to do this. You're taking time away from me to do this. When realistically, it just got to a point with my emotions to where I had something inside of me that had to come out. And I was trying to find a way to creatively express it because that's really all I've ever known. But that started building up, and we just kind of started drifting further apart, and I realized this isn't going to work. And one day she came home pregnant with another man's kid.
Wait, hold on. She cheated on you?
Correct.
So how many kids did you have with her?
4.
And then she went out. How did you find out?
She she at least had enough sense to tell me, like, hey, I'm pregnant and it's not yours. And that was the defining moment. I broke down, I cried, because I knew, there was no way that I was going to be responsible for this new child, especially if I didn't take part in creating it. I knew that the marriage was over, but past that point, there was an incident that included pictures. She ended up miscarrying this child. There was an incident that included her sending out pictures of the miscarried fetus to people, and it was really disturbing. And it was just that point to where I realized I can't salvage this at all.
And then did you know whoever she cheated with?
I did. He wasn't my friend personally, but I know of him. And later on, he was dating another girl at the time that this fling started happening. And I guess he just kind of threw her to the side, started hooking up with my ex-wife, and they got pregnant right away. And the guy started showing that he wasn't going to be responsible, and that I had made it clear that I'm not comfortable doing this anymore. And I think that's probably what.
Was she not making time for her in terms of
realistically at this point in time, and it hasn't really stopped over the last 6.5 years. It became more about revenge against me.
For what?
For leaving, for, doing what she perceives wrong. And at this point, you could ask me, what does she think you did wrong? And I can't even tell you at this point. I can't even nail down one specific thing, because from my understanding, it's just I've done everything wrong. I'm a terrible person. I never did anything right, and I was a terrible father, which is not realistic. There's nobody in life that's just a complete screw up in every way, but it became past the point of me filing divorce. It became, there's nothing good about you. And there was a text message that was sent that specifically said, I am going to use the kids to hurt you.
Really?
Yes.
And she did that?
She did exactly that. She did it once before when I tried to divorce her in Colorado. She took the children and just up and left and was found across the United States trying to get my rights terminated. She thought she could go to a different court in a different state with the children, file for custody, and then have me not show up and then get a default judgment. And that was something she tried to repeat later on, too.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And the thing that I honestly regret about that situation is I went out there to get her. I went out there to pick up the kids. And I know this sounds cruel, but I had the kids in the back of the car. And the passenger door was locked. And I unlocked it so she could get in, so I could take her back, because I knew that she couldn't support herself, because she wouldn't drive, she wouldn't get her driver's license, she had never worked a job. I was like, I can't leave her here, but if I would have, all of the bad things that happened from that point forward wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. So you did tell me she was fighting you in court?
Correct.
Yeah. If she was not working, how would she get the funds to, pay for litigation fees and all that?
Well, here's the thing. She's got support doing what she's been doing. And
support from who?
Her boyfriend, her best friend, and I'm assuming some extended family. I do know that in court, she completely lied about the amount of money that she makes and the amount of income that, she actually has coming into the house. She only included herself, and she managed to convince the judge that she skates by supporting everybody with like $6,000 a year, which is unrealistic. You have a house, you have to pay utilities, you're going to pay, $7,000 a year just in gas bills alone. So there's no possible way, but,
Damn.
Yeah. And unfortunately, the ways that the laws are structured here in Oklahoma, you don't count a boyfriend's income. You don't count a live-in boyfriend's income. You don't count the fact that your mom lives with you and gets Social Security, or the fact that your best friend pays for whatever you need. And me, about halfway through the divorce, I got injured, ended up with epilepsy, and I couldn't work a normal job for a while because I had to adjust to a life with seizure disorder. And from that point, I just got screwed. I couldn't afford my attorney anymore. He withdrew from my case, and then the kids went away, and they just stayed away.
So, when was the last time you saw your kids?
It would have been October 24th of 2024.
Why that gap?
She's angry. And, with her, especially post-divorce, it's always been a matter of, how dare you defy me? How dare you go against my wishes? And, even statements to my kids such as, I'm not doing this, son. I want to be with you. I miss you. I'm not choosing this, were used against me to make me look like I was coercing my kid, when realistically, they deserve to hear it. They deserve to know that they have a dad that is out there fighting for them. They deserve to know that they have a father that loves them and has never stopped. And that was one of the biggest things she used to kind of further alienate me from the kids. There was a protective order that was done via perjury, actually, that was used to kind of really be the final nail in the coffin of my contact with my children. And she accused me of something that never happened.
What did she accuse you of?
She put on the protective order that I was a threat because on a phone call with my children, I asked them to stop interrupting, and I asked that her boyfriend stop distracting the child so we could have our time together, because it was the only time that we were getting in a whole week. We got this 1 2-hour phone call, and I asked that they stop because it was constant distraction and they were answering questions for him. She hangs up on me. She just hangs up the phone in the middle of my kid talking. And that was one of the last phone calls we had. And then she files a protective order. A few years prior, she had accused me of kidnapping when I had my full parental rights. She accused me of kidnapping, and obviously when somebody makes a criminal accusation, it's due process. They have to investigate, right?
Yeah.
I ended up in a hold in jail due to these allegations that were disproven, completely unsubstantiated, because it was nothing that existed. You know, they weren't able to prove it, so they chose not to prosecute. And she claimed on this protective order that I was charged with kidnapping. And the local court system never looked into it. They never accepted my documentation from Superior Court that shows this was dismissed because there was no merit. And so she filed a protective order, and obviously any authority figure that sees kidnapping is going to be like, oh, heck yeah. You know. But I'm still dealing with this today. She spreads around to all kinds of people that I'm a kidnapper, or I have all these charges, or that I'm dangerous, but consistently I pass background checks, I pass drug tests. You know, I'm not a drug user, I'm not a dangerous person. I teach children. I'm a music teacher, and I have a 100% clean background, but I found myself defending myself to people I don't even know for allegations that she made that were never true.
I see. Do you ever regret being with your ex-wife?
I do. And I don't mean to say that to be cruel, because I know that sounds cruel, especially with how easily I was able to be like I do. But the part of that is I got 4 beautiful children. I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for her for that, because together we created those 4 beautiful children.
Yeah.
I'll never take that away from her. I'll never deny that. However, I realized, I thought I just had a bad picker, right? I just didn't know how to pick somebody. But realistically, I had already met the person I was supposed to be with. But we didn't choose each other back then, and so I chose right back into the cycle. And if I could do it all over again, I would spare both of us the pain. You know, it didn't have to end up with 4 children that are just needlessly hurt. It didn't have to end up with 4 children that have to wonder why it is they can't see their dad. It didn't have to end with a dad that fought for his life against epilepsy and a blow to the back of the head and fought major depression and somehow survived. You know, like, it didn't have to ever be this way. Like, you know, so if I could make some decisions differently, I would. But at the same time, I would not change the children that I have.
So how did you meet your current wife?
I met my current wife before I met my ex-wife, actually.
How? How did that happen?
We met at a Halloween party.
Oh.
Yeah. And
which year was this?
That would have been that same year that I met her. But the relationship was intense, great, you know, wonderful, passionate, but unfortunately short-lived. She had a health scare, and, you know, it kind of resulted in us drifting apart. And then I met, you know, my ex-wife. But, excuse me, several years ago we reconnected, and for the past 3 years we've just been kind of each other's rock. So that support, and, you know, we circled each other's lives again and again and again, and until it just became like, hey, this is my person.
Oh, that's awesome. So do you have new kids with her?
No, there's talk of, you know, working on that and possibly having one more together.
Okay. And does she have kids?
She does. She has 3.
Okay.
So between the 2 of us, we've got 7.
Is she also from Oklahoma?
Yes. Well, I mean, she was born in St. Louis, but
Missouri?
She spent most of her life here in Oklahoma.
Okay.
And she's if you've listened to our Sucker EP, I mean, that's the person I'm a sucker for. You know, that's the person I write any of the, as our guitarist Darren calls it, bubblegum pop songs about. You know, the cute stuff. That's all Haley.
Yeah. So all this going on, how did she feel? And then how was, you know, I mean, her reaction? Like, hey, you have a lot of drama going on in your life. What did she do? Did she support you?
Realistically, she supports me in a way that I never knew I was worthy of. You know, even from the start of us reconnecting, it became one of those things to where she was the first person I told about anything. Even the bad stuff happening during the custody battle, or, you know, the good stuff happening with the formation of the band, you know, I always went straight to her. And vice versa, you know, when things go wrong or she needs somebody to talk to or has something exciting, she would always come to me. So we started the relationship we have with honesty, you know, just flat out honesty, transparency, the way you're supposed to, you know, and really fought for each other. There was a lot stacked against us, as far as, you know, us being able to be together and making everything work and blending families. And it's one of those things that even though she knew what I'd been through, even though I knew what she'd been through, we were still able to consistently choose each other.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So what's your most regrettable experiences in life so far?
My most regrettable experiences in life, you know, I think this is probably really common for parents, because as a parent, I always make it my goal every nice weekend where it's nice out. You know, me and the kids, we go out to hike in a forest or go out to a lake or go to the fair or do something fun. And I look back on those times having missed, you know, well over a year, like a year consecutive right now.
Yeah.
But before that, it was spread out. This has been going on over 3 years. Now, having missed 3 years of those beautiful memories and those things that you can't get back, I just wish I would have taken every bit of time that I had to enjoy the moments that I did have.
I see. So what's your greatest fear?
My greatest fear, failing them. Not being someone they can be proud of. You know, not doing something with my life, because I could sit here and let the circumstances that I've been dealt or the things that I've been through, I could let that dictate my whole path moving forward, or I could choose to do something with what I've learned. And I feel like, you know, as a dad and trying to be a good example of resilience and patience and, you know, just forward momentum, I can't let this destroy me, you know, and so I've got to do something. I've got to leave a legacy that they can be proud of while I'm still here on this earth. And that's like my biggest motivator. That, and, you know, I want to make Haley proud. And, you know, I want to make the people who have supported us the whole time, even when I was a depressed wreck. I want to make everybody proud.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Tyler, for having you. You know, I mean, having the courage to come on, you know, I mean, on this episode to share your story. And I know a lot of people are going through this, and your story will inspire others to come out and then feel like, hey, there's hope for we all. Doesn't matter you being a lady, being a man, there's hope for all of us. Thank you, Tyler.
Anytime. And
Thank
that's my whole message.
you,
I want people to see that, you know, even in the worst of situations that are quite literally meant to destroy you and break your spirit, if you can push through it, you can use it to reach many other people. And, you know, I just want to leave you with this, you know, the fact that I'm still here is nothing short of a miracle.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful.
Right. Okay. So, guys, it's been a wonderful conversation. It's been deep. I've learned, and I don't know what to say. But hey, I know a lot of people be going through a lot of personal issues, abuse, both physically, emotionally, mentally, whatever. But hey, there's hope. Like he said, a miracle exists. You don't give up. Don't give up. There's always light at the end of the tunnel. And if you're going through a relationship or whatever it is, and then if it's not going right, take a minute and reassess. We only live once. YOLO. We only live once. I appreciate you for spending your time with us on this episode on One-on-One on K84 Podcast. And I've been your host and friend, Kenna the Greatest. Please go like, follow, share, and subscribe on all social media platforms. Just search K84 Podcast and stay connected. I will see you and catch you again on another episode. Thank you. Bye.
It's KK ATL, turn up, it's official.